Okay, hello everyone. I'm Reverend Dr. Epochal. This is the 5th Epochal Revelation Fellowship. Today is June 9th, 2013, and tonight we're going to continue our study on our universe study charts, the origin, history, density, and universe reality. And we're going to spend about 4 or 5 more weeks on this, aren't we? And then we're going to start from the beginning of the book forward, right? And we're going to work it all the way through it. So we're going to hit all the rest of this chart in doing that. I'd like to get at least to the top part of this before we start. So when we hit the forward, we got a pretty good basis for moving into the forward, and hopefully we can make it understandable, right? That's the goal anyway. Last time we were about halfway through one of the slides on the infinite spirit. I believe it was this slide here.
Page 26.
Yep. And I think we started on 91.1, if I remember correctly. It could be wrong. Let's start actually on 97. We're right about that. And Pam, why don't you start reading tonight, if you would?
Okay. Inherent in the nature of this transaction and in mutual recognition of the personality independence of each and the executive union of all three, the cycle of eternity is established. The Paradise Trinity is existent. The stage of universal space is set from the manifold and never-ending panorama of the creative unfolding of the purpose of the Universal Father through the personality of the Eternal Son and by the execution of the God of action, the executive agency for the reality performance of the Father-Son Creator partnership.
Okay, so who's this God of action he's talking about here?
Infinite Spirit.
The infinite spirit, right? So you know that the eternal Son was the original expression, right? And from the first thought, right? And that makes the infinite spirit the God of action, right? Okay, let's keep going.
The God of action functions and the dead vaults of space are austere. 1 billion perfect spheres flash into existence. Prior to this hypothetical eternity moment, the space energies inherent in paradise are existent and potentially operative, but they have no actuality of being. Neither can physical gravity be measured except by the reaction of material realities to its incessant pull. There is no material universe at this assumed eternally distant moment, but the very instant that 1 billion worlds materialize, there is in evidence gravity sufficient and adequate to hold them in the everlasting grasp of paradise.
Okay, so you notice they use very vague terms here, right? Because paradise and Havana were what? Are existential. They always have been, always will be. But they give us this idea of a creative moment, don't they? So that we can get it in our mind. But let's think about this for a second. If this really was reality, before the billion worlds of the Havana appeared, who would be active? The unqualified absolute, right? Because the unqualified absolute is the one that takes all that primordial matter and gets it in there and gets it organized so that there's something to work with, right? So let's take. Huh? And, yeah. They're talking about creation with Arona here, right? So if paradise was created first, right, then Havana would come directly after that, right? The instant after that. But wouldn't you think that the unqualified would have had to work then? At this eternity moment, right? Too? So what do you have? You have the deity absolute, control of deity, right? The universal absolute, the mechanism of controlling both deity and non-deity, the glue, if you will. And then you have the universal, the unqualified absolute working even before Havana, right? Now, an interesting thought about this is why you see in the book they speculate whether these deities, universal, the unqualified, and the qualified absolute, were existent along with God, and they mentioned even before God. But they said that's impossible because you had to have God to have these. So it's like a catch-22, isn't it? You know? But it is an interesting question, you know? So when you think of these deities, they're out there so far in the eternal past, we can't even grasp it, right? We talk about them being in the future and how they're working in the outer space levels and everything, but these have been here almost as long as the universal Father, right? That's just something for y'all to think about.
So Havana's always been,
Always been.
including the dark gravity.
Including the dark red. Well, they were created at some point, but at some point so far in eternity it's never emerged.
But Havana is not one of the absolutes.
Huh?
Havana is not one of the
It's
absolutes.
not one of the absolutes.
So that means that there is a difference between paradise and Havana.
Well, there is.
So-
Definitely a difference.
So is Havana as existential as paradise?
No. No.
So,
Paradise came first. Paradise appeared the moment the sun appeared, right?
right. But Havana appears when the spirit appears.
That's right. That's right. So there
But the spirit is existential.
is a,
So that's why Havana is existential.
you got it.
But not an absolute the way paradise is.
That's right. Not an absolute in the way the paradise is. Only paradise, they tell us only paradise is absolute, right? What does that make Havana?
Transcendental, is that right?
Transcendental. It's transcendental space, but you need to get this clear. Havana is not transcendental. Havana is Havana. It's like paradise. You know, they say there's no definition of paradise, but it just is. It's like the Father. It just is, always has been. Havana is much like that. The difference being that we don't want to get the idea that Havana, because it has absonite and transcendental beings occupying the space, that Havana itself is transcendental. It's not. Okay? It's the type of matter that's between finite and absolute. We have finite matter, which has about 100 elements or something. Havana has 1,000 elements. So it's some sort of created material outside of paradise, because only paradise is unique. It is the second, you've got to think of paradise as the pattern of everything. Havana is the first copy of the material, really, if you think about it. Havana is trying to duplicate the perfection of paradise, the material part of Havana. Okay?
You said that you said Havana is between finite.
And absolute. You remember we have finite, absonite, and absolute. Havana would be absonite, right? If you want to think of a material, I would think more along the line of absonite than I would transcendental. Transcendental is the type of beings that's there. Absonite is the type of beings that's there also. But Havana itself is not, quote, quote, transcendental.
What is the difference between absonite and transcendental, or transcendental beings and absoniters?
Okay, absoniters are a type of being, and so are transcendentals. They're two different types of being, but transcendentals transcend time and space. And if I remember correctly, I hate to even say this because I'm not sure, but I believe absonite beings are more permanent than the transcendental beings.
So is transcendental a little bit more like absonite?
Closer to us.
So it's lower.
It's lower, yeah. You can think of absolute is paradise, right? If you had absolute beings, where would they live? They live in paradise. If you had absonite beings, where would they live? They would probably live in Havana or the outer space levels. Transcendentals live not only in paradise, Havana, finite space, but they also will live in the outer space levels. That's why they're called transcendentals. That's one of the reasons they're called. They transcend time and space. And that's why in the outer space levels, there may be a whole new type of being that will occupy that space in the outer space levels. Because you have absonite and transcendental beings involved in the creation of the worlds in the outer space levels. So you have a combination of finite, which is us, transcendentals, and absonite help to manage and create the outer space levels with the Supreme. Okay? So that's probably what our job will be to go out and help and minister these worlds that's out there. You know? Because you think about it, even in the first outer space levels, it will have more planets than we have in the 7 super universes. You know, exponentially more planets. So you think they're going to need some personnel out there? I think so, you know. And then on top of that, there'll be the created beings that are created out in those outer space levels, right? So what will their job be? Their job will be to go from their universe through finite, through transcendental area, or absonite area, which would be development, and then on the paradise for perfection. So all the universe beings are on a trip to perfection, if you think about it. You know, when God says, be perfect even as I am perfect, that's what he means. You know, that's the job. We take the trip to perfection. We're not perfect here, we just strive to be perfect here. We had a hard enough time on this world just to do God's will, right? We struggle with that every day. We're nowhere near perfection, but God expects us to think perfection, right? That's our goal. So everything we do, we need to think about that perfection. So when this happened in eternity, the same time the Spirit appeared, Havona appeared. Now think about this. The Spirit helps control what? Physical matter, right? The gravity circuits, right? So it's kind of funny they say right here, with the very instant 1 billion worlds materialize, there is in evidence gravity sufficient and adequate to hold them in the everlasting grasp of paradise. So the infinite Spirit functions in helping that gravity circuit, that is heat, or heat, because there's material worlds and things like that. So they have to make sure that these worlds and these circuits and everything stays within that gravity grasp, right? And there's sufficient enough to do that. Now, which came first? The infinite Spirit or the gravity? You know, they tell us it's a sequence of events. They're just telling us it couldn't work either way. God the Father could have created the gravity circuit first, right? And then what did he do? He separated himself and made God the Son and God the Spirit. So the sequence of events is really not that important. The important thing is the fact that it is. And it's kind of like the I am. We talk about the I am. And, you know, they keep saying in the book, and this is a hard concept, and it's even in the Bible, they talk about, I am that I am, right? The I am always has been, always will be. He was here pre this chart, right? He was in existence pre this chart. At least that's the way they explain it to us.
So we're at the Son and the Spirit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the sequence of events is in a way nonsense because
It's just for us to remember.
It's just
Yeah.
a way to explain to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're time-space, right? Everything we know is time-space. Our concepts are time and space. It's hard for us to think existential because we have a beginning, we'll always have, always will be, but we always remember we have a beginning, right? And most of the creatures in the seven super universe do have a beginning. Even the ones created by the Creator's Son, Michael, right? Jesus. Those beings all had a beginning. They were created by the Creator's Son, right? So they have a concept of a beginning, but like us, they will have no end, right? And that's why they explain it to us, so that we have a reference point to go from, right? But it's interesting that they even have to explain this. Why would they not say, just off the bat, Paradise and Havona always, God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, Paradise and Havona always has been. It has no beginning.
I think they know, you know, if you go back to Moses and what you just said, he said to Moses, I am that I am. And the book explains, you know, Moses didn't have the capacity to understand anything beyond that.
No.
But I think that also tells us that, yes, we do. So
Yeah.
we're going to try to explain this to you in a little bit more detail. Because you
That's
guys
it.
have the capacity to get this.
Yeah. And the tricky part is for us is it kind of gives us, when we read this stuff, it gives us the impression that you have the capacity to understand this, so this is your job to understand this. You need to know this, right? Before you progress on. Now, you can wait until you get to the first mansion world and learn all this, can't you? But they feel that it's important enough that they revealed it. That's why it's called the fifth epochal revelation, right? Jesus in Salvington decided, well, mankind is ready for more than what I taught them.
Or certain of them anyway.
We're certain, most of them anyway. So they gave us this new revelation to start to understand. Now, is this exhaustive? No. It's like they said, if you just taught just the concept of Jesus, it would take 1,000 of these volumes, at 2,000 pages each, just to teach Jesus' life, much less all the rest of this. So, it's a lot of information, but does this give us an excuse just because we can learn in the mansion worlds not to learn it?
We have a great responsibility.
We have a
because
great
we know
responsibility. That's right. That's right.
But the question is, what does it do to us to know it now? So what is the impact of knowing that versus not knowing?
Because if you know it now, you will start to build your Marancha motor. That's what's important. Your
And
Marancha
also
motor.
teaching now sooner than later.
You're teaching now sooner than later. You're able to teach your children. You're able to teach your children's children. Their children will learn from this, right? You got to start somewhere. We're still back in the sticks and stone ages, if you think about it. We're still teaching the same things we've always taught. And so it's time for us to grow up and become adults. That's what the celestial beings are saying is, listen, you're starting to be spiritual adults. You're getting ready to start building your Marancha motor. Let's give you some basis for that Marancha motor. And in doing that, when you get to that first mansion world, you may not stay on that first mansion world. You may go on to the second, the third, or the fourth, right? So this is a preparation. Now, what they do tell us, though, even if you go to the second, third, or fourth, what do you have to do? You have to go back to the first and teach those that come behind you, right? So we don't skip over the worlds. People think, well, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna skip the first 7 worlds. I'll be a Jerusalem citizen right off the bat. Would it do you any good? No. You still got to go back and experience those 7 worlds. You don't miss anything. You don't get away with anything in the universe, right? There's no laziness allowed. Okay. So you kind of understand. Does that make sense?
Can I share what one of the things he does to me getting into US concept? What he does is one of the things that I've had in the past when meditating on, what is life after life, what is the purpose of life. Several times I've had the fear of being bored. And say, okay, well, yeah, there is life after life, but then what? Then you do that, and then you do more, and then what? And then what? Always this fear of being bored, and there is, what else to do then? What is the next step? And what this gives me a sense of is that fear doesn't make any sense, because that fear is based on a time, space-based reality, which is the finite reality that we're familiar with. But we are destined to something that is more than finite.
Yeah.
And getting a sense of that, and a better sense of that, thanks to the revelation, helps. When I have this fear, I said, "Come on, I'm crazy. Look at what's it is absolute. It just doesn't make any sense." And I would take a step further, but that's more like an hypothesis now. Is that I suspect that if we take who are the people who have fused the progesterone and Enoch, and we use the one Elijah. They certainly didn't have that revelation, that teaching available to them. But I think, or I suspect, that the basics of those concepts in terms of having the concept of we are finite and there is an absolute reality that is beyond the finite. I think you do get it when you get close enough in tune with what I just
the will of God.
No matter if you have that.
Yeah.
Even there is the will of God in our physical reality, which is love, sir, which I think we can do independently of all that.
Yes, we can.
We can. I don't think this is really
You don't have to have God to do that.
Well,
To love and to serve. You can be totally godless and love, serve other people. But to be in touch with that thought adjuster, like you say, and be open
Directed.
to that. Huh? Directed by that. Doing the will of God. That's a different concept.
But you can
Not
be
just
doing
that.
that with your thought adjuster.
That's right.
Not based on right, without having a good sense of those concepts.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that, but what I suspect, and I may be completely wrong, but I suspect that if you do get beyond that, then the work with your thought adjuster gives you a sense of those concepts.
Mhm.
And that's again, it's just a suspicion. I'm
Well,
not
you
sure.
know, and which brings up another point, Jill, and that is this. Why did we get another revelation? You know, Jesus approved this. It was his concept, okay, this revelation. So he must have felt through the Spirit of truth, which he communicates constantly, right? It's his Spirit. He must have felt like mankind had gotten to the point where it's time to learn more. And that's why it came at this particular time, you know? Because look at, we had 2,000 years of priests and everybody else running around trying to tell us what God wanted us to do. And many times they were wrong, weren't they? Their actions were wrong. The reactions were wrong. So were they in touch with their thought adjusters? Probably not, right? So maybe this is Jesus' ways to say, okay, enough's enough. These are my children. It's time for them to act like my children. It's time for them to learn like my children. It's time for them to understand their place in the universe, right?
I wonder why a Majestical son was not sent along with us to back it.
Because it should need no backing. That's why. If you think about it, the intellectual explosion that happens to you when you start to understand this book,
That's a great way to put that.
it's amazing.
Intellectual explosion.
It is
I like
because,
that. You just coined a new term.
yeah, it opens up new pathways to new realities to you, does it not? Okay? And it takes intellectual stamina to get through it. It's not an easy book to read. If you hand it to somebody and say, it's an easy read, go home, read it this weekend. If they come back on Monday and they told you that you've read it, they're lying, don't you? I mean, even if you were a speed reader, you would have to slow down on this thing, So, it does take some time and it takes some effort. But look at the benefits spiritually that you gain in this life from this. It changes your perspective of not only your relationship with God, it changes your relationship with Jesus, does it not? It changes your relationship with your husband or wife. It changes your relationship with your children. It changes your relationship with every person you interact with because they are no longer your enemy. They're children of God, right? And the hard part for us is we still have that barbaric spark in us, don't we? So we want to revert back to the fight or flight constantly. And what is it? It's that fear coming back, right? I don't know about this. I don't know about this. We were taught to fear God for so long. It's innate for us to fear God. If they would have started the other way around and started us teaching us to love God, our whole basis of religion would have been different. Think about that.
The book does explain, how.
Why did they
Right.
yeah,
Why
it's
did they
because
do that?
human beings were basically born out of fear.
Well, and they were fearing all this other
They
stuff.
feared everything.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
okay.
They feared the lightning. They
put
feared
your
their
fear-
food. They feared,
right.
yeah.
Put your fear in
They were
the-
going to get eaten
this
by
infinite
animals.
being
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
They feared everything.
Right.
Even ghost fear. The midwayers running around, they didn't help because, you got a group of all these midwayers out and appearing to these Bedouins and these barbaric people out in their campfires. That didn't help any, did it? I mean, think about it. They were having fun. But that's what happens in rebellion. That's what part of why rebellion is such a bad disease, and that's what it is. It's a disease that spreads like crazy, and we're infested with it right now. We hope that it's changing every day, for the better. But when you look at the news, when you look at the indications out there, it's hard to tell. It really is. So what's our job? Our job's not politics. Our job's not, what, commercial? What's our job? Our job is revelation of God. That's our job. Not anything else. Just revelation. Yeah. So that's the way we have to approach it. Even though we want to get in there and say, hey, you're wrong, this needs to be done this way, because we know better. Why do we know better? Because it tells us in this book how to do it right, doesn't it? I mean, you can almost find any answer. You know, when I was a Baptist, preaching, I had all the answers. You know, that Bible told me everything, right? Did it answer my questions? No, it didn't. But when I got this book, there's not a question I ever asked that was not answered at one time or another. But it takes a lot of time to get through this, you know? If you think you're going to open the book and you're going to have all the answers to the universe, you're in for a sad awakening. It takes time to absorb it, you know? So, anyway. What are you going to say, Chief?
Yeah, you made a mention about the manifesting the rebellion. Are you referring to the fact that the lot of badness in people, and are you referring that there are still some mid-graders?
No, there's no mid-graders still here, as far as we know.
So
the only beings that may still be on this planet that are in rebellion are who? Caligas and Dalagas.
So they're still here.
Well, in 1955, right before this is published, they were still here. They could be gone now. We don't know, right?
They were.
Huh?
Okay, they were at the time.
Yeah, they were at the time. So as far as we know, they could still be here. They could be gone. But
I wonder why they allow people to be here.
because they have not been called before judgment yet.
But what they were doing? What were they doing? What were their activities?
Causing havoc any way humanly possible they could.
Seems to be a lot of that going on.
That goes on all the time. But they, like the midwayers, cause more evil havoc. You know, the devil possession type things, that sort of thing. That is all part of their plan. They rule by fear. They know that fear is the best controller of human beings than anything, right? Governments know it. Commercial people know it. If they can show you something on TV and make you afraid of it, you're going to go out and buy it to keep from being afraid, aren't you? What do you think alarm system companies get on and show people breaking into your house? You know, you see that and you go, oh, I got to go buy an alarm system. You know, it's fear, right? Caligaston knows that. Dalagaston knows that. So if they can make you afraid of something, they can make your actions for that thing change, right? And if you change your actions, you may be going against what? What God wants you to do, the will of God, right? If you can conquer the fear in your life, you're more open to hear the words of God, aren't you? You're more open to follow that thought adjustment because you're not afraid. Why do we not go out and change the world, all of us? I can tell you what, because we're afraid.
We lack courage.
We lack courage. That's right. We're afraid what other people's going to think about us, right? You know, I have a job. I don't want my employer to think I'm in that case. I don't want them to think I'm a religious fanatic, right? Fear. It's all fear, you know? I don't want to go out, you know, I don't want to let anybody know that I'm Christ-based because I won't even get any dates. You know, I'll never have sex, you know? Why? Because we're afraid, right? We let fear control our life. If we can conquer that fear, our lives change, right? And that's what this book is about. It's getting rid of the fear. Because the more you learn, the more, we were talking about this last night, you know, superstitions, right? How many superstitions you had when you were growing up? Everybody had superstitions, right? You wouldn't walk under a ladder. You wouldn't walk in front of the black cat. You wouldn't do this. You wouldn't do that, right? Because we were trained as children, and from the TV, oh, this is a bad omen, or this is a bad this, or this is a bad... It's all a bunch of crap, isn't it? Really? You think about it. None of it's true. We have nothing to fear. The things that will harm us in life, does it matter? No. Why? Because if we died, if somebody walked through that door right now and shot me, I'm going to the mansion world. My world is good, you know. God keeps me here to do this. That's the only reason I'm here anymore. And I look at it this way, and my family, people I love, you know, my friends, my fellowship, right? That's why I'm here. The rest of it doesn't matter. It's just things. Right?
It's not about us.
Huh?
It's not about us.
It's not about us. That's right. Okay, let's keep going. Get the next one.
Me?
Yeah.
There now flashes through the creation of the gods the second form of energy, and this outflowing spirit is instantly grasped by the spiritual gravity of the eternal Son. Thus, the twofold gravity-embraced universe is touched with the energy of infinity and immersed in the spirit of divinity. In this way is the soil of life prepared for the consciousness of mind made manifest in the associated intelligence circuits of the infinite spirit.
Okay, so let's think about this. You remember these circuits we talked about here before? What they're talking about here is what? The sun spirit, right? That's this blue line, spiritual gravity circuit, right? And that's what they're mentioning here. At the same time, the second form of energy, right? The spiritual gravity of the eternal Son. Now, how is this spiritual gravity different from the physical gravity? Anybody got any ideas?
A circuit.
Huh?
It's a different circuit.
It's a different circuit. It's a different form of energy, the spiritual gravity. It doesn't control physical beings, does it? It only what? It only influences spiritual beings. Are we in that spiritual circuit? Yes. How are we in that spiritual circuit? We're in the spiritual circuit through who? The Creator Son, right? That circuit goes out through the Son, and the divinity line comes through the Creator Son. And don't you think that the Spirit of truth is how we're within that circuit? You think about it. When the Son, the Creator Son, poured out His Spirit at Pentecost, right? He poured it out on all the world. Now, did all the world use that Spirit? No. You have a choice to reject it, don't you? You have a choice to reject it today. But if you don't reject it, you're in this spiritual circuit, right? This gravity of spiritual things. Now, what does this gravity of spiritual things do? It draws you to the Father, right? So you have another pull towards you, your spiritual pull, right? Okay. And what else? There's one more here we can't get off of before we mention it. Mind. Who controls the mind circuit? The infinite spirit. And that's what we're studying, right? So that's that third point. The mental gravity circuit, right? Who do you think is the influence in that? Local universe mother spirit. That's right. Now think about this. The seven adjutant mind spirits, is that not influencing mind? Right? And who's in charge of the seven adjutant mind spirits? The local creative mother spirit.
You know, I think that's part of why we got this revelation, because the wisdom, the seventh adjutant of wisdom, must have somehow kicked in, or you know, something coinciding with us getting this revelation, or else we would have been, I mean, this is my opinion, we would have been greatly at a disadvantage to be able to understand this if that wasn't working along
You know what? It's funny. I have
with
read
everything else.
I've read reviews of the Uranus book online sometimes. There's tons of them out there. You can look them up. But one of them, I'll never forget, states this. And it's a good review because the more I read the review, the more I'd be convinced to read the book, even though he's talking against the book. Okay? So, but it's funny how things work. But
You mean like on Amazon or something? With
no,
those
it was
reviews?
actually a Christian that was bashing the Uranus book. But it's kind of funny that he called the writing in the Uranus a bunch of gobbledygook. You know what a gobbledygook is? It's a bunch of just words thrown together. It means nothing. But all right, think about our Wednesday night meeting. We've been studying very advanced concepts, haven't we, in our Wednesday night meetings? And we've been going through them here too, right? But the things that he would consider gobbledygook is exactly the things we've been studying, if you think about it. When it talks about the unqualified absolute, if you heard this in a sentence, would you have any idea what he was talking about? No. Someone has to help you understand it, right? That's what these angels do when you get to Havona, right? They help you understand how to recognize the Father, the Son, the Spirit, right? So, just because we start talking about things that he has no concept for does not mean it's gobbledygook or it doesn't exist, does it? It's his lack of understanding and taking the time to understand it, right? So, the things we've been reading, before we start studying, would you think some of it just kind of sounded like gobbledygook to you? Probably did, didn't you? You know? Yeah.
I never got that impression of the book the first time I read it. The impression of the book that I got was that, you know what? There has to be an element of truth here in this book, because no human being on this earth that I have ever even heard of or could imagine could have put that together.
Come up with these concepts.
No human could have come up with this.
But the interesting thing about these reviews and stuff, though, is this. People read this, and this guy says, they're just throwing all this stuff together, and it's because his lack of understanding of it. Just because you don't understand something does not mean it's false.
And the bias, right?
And bias.
Yes.
That's right.
They
The
help
bias.
to
Yeah.
recognize that they
That's right.
hold them here.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the
So-
mind of God, it's not simple to understand.
No, it's not simple to understand. And the other thing is this. I don't care who you are. Think of the apostles. When they started running around teaching the Jewish sects and things like that, do you think they ran into some resistance? Of course they did.
That's why they made all those compromises they made.
That's right. That's where how we got in this mess with the churches.
But this is going to progress on from here the exact same way. So let's not kid ourselves.
Let's not assume that. If we see, that's part of what our job is. If we make this understandable, okay, and I don't care if it's his interpretation, my interpretation, his interpretation, it doesn't matter. All we're doing is introducing them to truth, right? And how you interpret that truth is totally up to you. We aren't, no one's an authority, right? So what we're doing is, all we're doing is setting the stage, and we're letting God's will fill up the actors on the stage in your life, right?
I guess what I'm saying is, you know, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Mormons, you know, the Jews, everybody, you know, once they are introduced to this, and if they decide that this is the truth and they are going to progress on from there, they're going to take some of their stuff with them, no
They
matter
will.
what.
Yeah.
No matter what they are, no matter what religion you came from, no matter what you believe, you're going to take some of your stuff with you.
So don't you think we're going to end up with 1,000 different Urantia sects? Of course we will. Yeah. It'll work.
I mean, hopefully not. But
Yeah. At least until we get what? A magisterial son or a
Yeah.
Trinity teacher son to straighten us all out on all this stuff, right? If we had Adam and Eve like we should, we wouldn't have this issue, would we? Because we'd have an authority to go to and say, we're interpreting this way. Well, how is it really? You know? And they should have the experience to tell us that, right? But we don't have that. So we have to make do with what we got, right? So think of this as our stage setter. This gives you the background to go forward. That's all it's doing, right? Wonderful. Okay. Let's keep going.
Upon these seeds of potential existence diffused throughout the central creation of the gods, the Father acts, and creature personality appears. Then does the presence of the paradise deities fill all organized space and begin effectively to draw all things and beings paradise-ward.
So that the existence of the Trinity, from the moment the Trinity came together, from that moment forward, it immediately started drawing all beings to them, right? By what circuits? These, right? Personality circuit, the spiritual circuit, and mental circuit. Automatically starts drawing them.
what is the third one that you said?
The personality circuit, gravity circuit of the Father, personality circuit, the spiritual gravity of the Son, and the mental gravity
okay.
of the infinite Spirit, right? Now we have one more. We not only have the personality gravity circuit of the Father, but we have the adjuster to help us know which way to go, right? The will of the Father. Okay, one more paragraph here. Let's read it.
The infinite spirit eternalizes concurrently with the birth of the Corona worlds, his central universe being created by him and with him and in him in obedience to the combined concepts and united wills of the Father and the Son. The third person deitizes by this very act of conjoint creation, and he thus forever becomes the conjoint creator.
All right, and we got one more paragraph. Go ahead and get that because it's running off the thing here.
These are the grand and awful times of the creative expansion of the Father and Son by and in the action of their conjoint associate and exclusive executive, the third source and center. There exists no record of these stirring times. We have only the meager disclosures of the infinite infinite spirit to substantiate these mighty transactions, and he merely verifies the fact that the central universe and all that pertains thereto eternalizes simultaneously with his attainment of personality and conscious existence.
So this was before time, right? They call it the awful times. What a word. Would you have picked that?
Don't they mean like awful though? Like I'm in
Awful
awe.
That would be nice.
Not awe like in terrible.
Awful? Maybe that's what they mean?
I mean, that's how I took it. Anyway.
Huh? Yeah. Okay, so they explained to us that there was actually, this is, in a sense, this actually happened, but it was before time, right? So that's all we have to go through. Is there any more on that? No, that's it? Okay. All right, let's go to the next one, the nature of the infinite spirit. And Dawn, would you like to take it from me? Before I do that, I'm going to skip ahead one slide here, and I'm going to show you all this. Especially on this, what this says on this slide. All right, this is a representation of the Paradise Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, and he's got eternity. And this is the dark gravity bodies out here, right? And just inside the dark gravity bodies is a surface of the Helona worlds. Really, if you want to do this properly, you have 7 of these, right? I want to read what's on the bottom of this slide. The Paradise Trinity, the eternal deity union of the universal Father, the eternal Son, and the infinite Spirit, is existential in actuality, right? But all potentials are experiential. Did y'all get that? They're existential in actuality. In other words, they always have been. But the potentials of the universe, that which could happen, right, are all experiential. What makes them experiential? Because they have beings, right, that are finding their way back. And through experience, they're finding their way back to the Trinity, right? Okay? Therefore, does this Trinity constitute the only deity reality embracing infinity? The only deity reality. Therefore, do there occur the universe phenomena of the actualization of God the Supreme, God the Ultimate, and God the Absolute. We're going to study those a little bit later. And we'll back up here. And we'll go back to this nature of the infinite spirit. Okay, Rob, you want to take it from there?
92.2, section 8 and 2.1.
Yeah, speak up if you would, because we've got to get above this fan
I
here.
can barely read that part.
Yeah.
The contract
Actually, let
creator.
me kill this for a little while. It was hard to hear the video last week. Okay, go ahead.
The conjoint creator is from eternity and is holy and without qualification, one with the universal Father and the eternal Son. The infinite Spirit reflects in perfection not only the nature of the Paradise Father, but also the nature of the original Son.
Okay, so it reflects both of their natures, doesn't it? The Father and the Son together. Okay.
The third source and center is known by numerous titles: the Universal Spirit, the Supreme Guide, the Conjoined Creator, the Divine Executive, the Infinite Mind, the Spirit of Spirits, the Paradise Mother Spirit, the Conjoined Actor, the Final Coordinator, the Omnipresent Spirit, the Absolute Intelligence, the Divine Action, and on Urantia he is sometimes confused with the Cosmic Mind.
I want to point out something here. You notice here it says the Paradise Mother Spirit. Here. Now, where do you think they get some of these names from? Think about this. Other planets, don't they? This is what we call it the Infinite Spirit. We have a habit of calling it the Holy Spirit in this planet because of the Christian Church, right? But we actually know that the Holy Spirit is an influence of what? Creative Mother Spirit. But the Infinite Spirit, these are probably titles that other planets have given the Infinite Spirit. So if you want to think of a global concept, these may be what other planets may have. In other words, if you went to another planet and started talking about the Infinite Spirit, they'd say, the what? They may call it the Conjoined Actor. They may call it the Infinite Mind, you know, but it's still the same being, right? Okay, let's keep going.
It is altogether proper to denominate the third person of deity the Infinite Spirit, for God is Spirit. But material creatures who tend towards the error of viewing matter as basic reality and mind, together with spirit as postulates rooted in matter, would better comprehend the third source and center if he were called the infinite reality, the universal organizer, or the personality coordinator.
Okay, so when we talked about this, the error of viewing matter as a basic reality, right? Because we know now that matter is just a shadow of reality, is it not?
And it's
Yeah,
99.999% empty space.
that's right. That's right. Okay. All right, let's keep going.
The infinite spirit, as a universe revelation of divinity, is unsearchable and utterly beyond human comprehension. To sense the absoluteness of the Spirit, we need only contemplate the infinity of the Universal Father and stand in awe of the eternity of the original Son.
Okay, so they're telling us we can't comprehend it anyway, can't we? You know, so, though we try, right? And it's only comparable to what? The Universal Father, which we really don't understand at all, do we? Okay.
There is mystery indeed in the person of the infinite Spirit, but not so much as in the Father and the Son. Of all aspects of the Father's nature, the conjoint Creator most strikingly discloses his infinity. Even if the master universe eventually expands to infinity, the spirit presence, energy control, and mind potential of the conjoint actor will be found adequate to meet the demands of such a limitless creation.
Okay. Why would they say here of all aspect of the Father's nature when they're talking about the infinite Spirit? Because the infinite Spirit is what?
It's a part of it.
A part of the Father, wouldn't he? Right? He's an outcropping of the Father. So would he have the tendencies of personality of the Father? Of course he would. Right? Okay.
Though in every way sharing the perfection, the righteousness, and the love of the universal Father, the infinite Spirit inclines toward the mercy attributes of the eternal Son, thus becoming the mercy minister of the paradise deities to the grand universe. Ever and always, universally and eternally, the Spirit is a mercy minister, for as the divine sons reveal the love of God, so the divine Spirit depicts the mercy of God.
Okay, so why would you think that would be the case? You know who all these beings are? What are they called? Ministering spirits, right? And what kind of ministering spirits are there? They're the mercy ministering spirits. They give us mercy to understand, to be able to accept, to be able to approach God, right? That's why they're mercy ministers. Okay? Does it have to do with something you've done wrong, mercy? No. Yeah, don't think that this is, what they're talking about here is God's giving me mercy because I've sinned all my life, right? He does that anyway, doesn't he? We're talking about giving us mercy to be able to comprehend and understand so that what? We can eventually stand before God the Father, right? We can get to what? Perfection. And we need that mercy to get to perfection. You remember, I remember in another paper, y'all probably do too, where it talks about mercy credits. Do y'all remember that? It said that every human being born on this planet has adequate mercy credits to last them through all eternity. Okay? That's a lot of mercy, isn't it? You know? So all these stupid little things on this earth that we do, that we consider sins, do you think that keeps us from this trip? No, it doesn't. We have to learn from those things, don't we? But that doesn't keep us from standing before God the Father. And the Christians like to think of it as this. Forgiveness. I'm forgiven. Right? You know, we'll put it on their bumper stickers. Right? You know, they're not worried about dying because they're forgiven. We're all forgiven. We just have to accept that forgiveness. Right? Okay, let's keep going.
It is not possible that the Spirit could have more goodness than the Father, since all goodness takes origin in the Father. But in the acts of the Spirit we can the better comprehend such goodness. The Father's faithfulness and the Son's constancy are made very real to the spirit beings, and the material creatures of the spheres by the loving ministry and ceaseless service of the personalities of the infinite Spirit.
Okay, and why is this what they're talking about here? It's because it's the God of action, right? That's what we always come back to here. You know, they're talking about the goodness of the Father, right? And the acts of the Spirit. We can better the God of action, right? It's the action of the mercy of God, right?
Applied mercy.
Applied mercy of God. That's right. That's right. Okay. Let's keep going to the next one.
The conjoint Creator inherits all the Father's beauty of thought and character of truth. And these sublime traits of divinity are coordinated in the near supreme levels of the cosmic mind in subordination to the infinite and eternal wisdom of the unconditioned and limitless mind of the third source and center.
Okay, that's good. Let's move on to the next slide. And this is a slide I picked up when we talk about the Word of God. I cut off the top of that. It's the Word of God used in these pages with the following meaning. Right? And I know probably people think I'm beating all this stuff to death, but what I'm trying to do is prepare us for the forward in all this. If we get through these slides in the next 4 weeks, which I'd like to do, we'll have a good basis to start with the forward. Okay? Because the forward.
The forward.
We'll understand this top level all the way across. We're almost there now. Okay, we've covered most of this. So if someone asks you to come up and explain any of this, you should at least have a concept, a little bit of a concept. You might not be able to explain it completely, but you could at least say something about it more likely. When we finish getting through these slides, hopefully.
Talk to Roger.
Huh?
We'll say talk to Roger.
That's not fair. Okay, the Word of God. Diane, do you want to read, or are you busy with the things?
No, I think I'm okay. We have about 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes? Okay, in that case, let's let whoever read in a while. Rodney, do you want to read the next? And that way you can watch the video. Okay.
Okay, the word God is used in these papers with the following meanings. God the Father, Creator, Controller, Upholder, the Universal Father, the first person of deity.
Just keep going, Rodney, because let's read through all of these here.
God the Son, coordinate, creator, spirit controller, and spiritual administrator. The eternal Son, the second person of deity. God the Spirit, conjoint actor, universal integrator, and mind bestower. The infinite Spirit, the third person of deity.
Okay, let's hold up there just a second. There's 7 of these we're going to go through here, but what I want you to get out of this is that the word God here. Okay, so when we're talking about God, all these are aspects of God, right? You're talking about the Trinity, you're talking about the sevenfold, you're talking about the absolute and the ultimate. And this is all the aspects of the word God. That's what we're talking about here. Okay? So when we discuss any of these all are included in one big basket. God. Okay? All right, so let's keep going.
God the Supreme, the actualizing or evolving God of time and space. Personal deity associatively realizing the time-space experiential achievement of creature, creator identity. The Supreme Being is personally experiencing the achievement of deity unity as the evolving and experiential God of the evolutionary creatures of time and space.
So what are we part of? The Supreme,
Supreme.
right? Because we're the experiential, we're part of this experiencing achievement of deity as a creature, right? All right. And how is that? We have a thought adjuster, don't we? That thought adjuster allows us to be what? Part of deity. You got that? We're sons of God. So by the experience we gain, the thought adjuster gains it. And that goes back into the Supreme, does it not? So this is an experiential part of God, right?
The Creator is getting to experience finiteness through us.
Through us, that's right. And what do we get? We get to experience deity, that's right, divinity through the Creator.
And we have an eternal future.
It
Yeah,
works both ways.
it works both ways, you know. It's a symbiotic relationship, right? Y'all know what a symbiotic relationship is?
Both benefit.
That's why
Both
we're supposed to be
benefit.
showing God a good time.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
exactly.
Does God the Supreme have an individual personality?
Yes. God the Supreme is a personality, is a being.
Okay.
It's a person, yeah. Yeah. A separate person from not only and that's a hard concept because it's not only part of God the Father, but it's a separate personality from God the Father.
Is it existential?
It's existential, yeah. Well, yes, okay, but the Supreme had a beginning, okay? The Supreme had a beginning in paradise, but it's still existential. But the difference between the Supreme and some of the other types of deity is the Supreme is an experiential deity, where many of the deities are not. Okay, and we're gonna get into that a bit more. Okay.
God the sevenfold, deity personality, anywhere actually functioning in time and space. The personal paradise deities and their creative associates functioning in and beyond the borders of the central universe, and power personalizing as the Supreme Being on the first creature level of unifying deity revelation in time and space. This level, the grand universe, is the sphere of the time-space dissension of paradise personalities in reciprocal association with the time-space ascension of evolutionary creatures.
Okay. All right, let's let her restart here. Save it, restart. Okay? All right. So God the sevenfold, okay? And we're talking about deity personality anywhere actually functioning in time and space. Who is God the sevenfold? Remember this from the top part? The paradise creator sons are part of God the sevenfold. Let's go back to this. The word God is used. Is it proper to call our creator son God?
Yes.
Yes. You see that?
You've seen me, you've seen the Father.
You've seen me, you've seen the Father. That's right. Who else? The Ancients of Days. Would you have thought the Ancients of Days would have been part of God? What are they? They're the... Somebody tell me. What do they do? Judge. They're the judgment part of God, right? Does mercy come in with that? Yes, of course it does, right? The seven master spirits. We haven't studied these, but the seven master spirits are these spirits that are aligned along the edge of paradise. Okay? And there's seven of them, one for each of the seven super universes. And we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay? The supreme being. What's the supreme being? The experiential part of God, right? And of course, God the Spirit, God the Son, God the Father. Now, why do they list these as number one as the paradise creator son, and number 7 is God the Father? Because that's our ascension pass, right? Our association or our experience with God starts with what?
Creator.
The creator son, right? He's the God of our universe. The Ancients of Days, who are they? They're the God of the super universe, right? They judge. The seven master spirits, who are they? They're the stepping stone from the super universe to paradise, are they not? Okay? And this, the supreme being is everything we've experienced from the beginning of time, right? The experiential part. And of course the Son, Spirit, the Spirit, Son, and Father. And that's the pathway we have to recognize to get to whom? The Father, right? That's why they put him in here, right? God the seventh. All right.
So
Yeah.
God the sevenfold is not a personality, one single personality
No.
on its own. It's
No.
just a set of personalities.
It's an association, like a triunity, right?
Okay.
You cannot get to paradise without God the sevenfold.
It's the ladder.
It's the ladder to get there. That's right.
So it's a ladder of personalities
To paradise, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, God the ultimate, the eventuating God of supertime and transcendent space, the second experiential level of unifying deity manifestation. God the ultimate implies the attained realization of the synthesized absonite superpersonal rather, time, space, transcended, and eventuated experiential values, coordinated on final creative levels of deity reality.
Okay, now where do you think God the ultimate comes in with us?
Isn't that the one that is going to eventuate in the outer space levels?
Yeah, it is, but what else does it have to do with? Doesn't it have to do with Havana? Because it deals with what?
Deities.
Super time, transcendental time, and space. Who does that? Transcendental beings, right? So would we not have to recognize God the ultimate as we went into paradise? We have to go through Havana. So who would we have to recognize in Havana? The ultimate, right? Because the ultimate controls what? Absonite and transcendental beings, right? So we have to at least understand them to go through their space to get to paradise, right? It all works together. So that's the ultimate, right? All right, and let's keep going.
God the absolute, the experientializing God of transcendent superpersonal values and divinity meanings, now existential as a deity absolute. This is the third level of unifying deity expression and expansion. On this super creative level, deity experiences exhaustion of personalizable potential, encounters completion of divinity, and undergoes depletion of capacity for circulation to successive and progressive levels of other personalization. Deity now encounters, impinges upon, and experiences identity with the unqualified absolute.
Okay, so that is the last absolute before we start talking about the unqualified, isn't it? Okay, so understanding this deity means we have to understand from the beginning to end, from paradise all the way to the 7 super universe levels, right? To the what? To even through the 4 outer space levels, to what? Where the unqualified kicks in, right? So we need the understanding of the absolute to understand all of these super universes, right? The grand universe. You follow me? Because the absolute hinges upon what? The ultimate, right? And paradise. That makes sense?
Why? So the ultimate and the absolute are
2 different deities.
with a personality each,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Why would you suspect they are not part of the sevenfold?
That's a good question. And I could speculate on that, but I would be probably wrong. The sevenfold has more to do, this is my opinion, the sevenfold has more to do with experiential beings traveling to paradise. All right? These not only have to do with experiential beings, but they also have to do with things we don't even know about, like beings out there that are not revealed to us in the book, right? There's a whole plethora of personalities and beings that they never mentioned in the Urantia book. They said it would take thousands and thousands of volumes for them to explain all the different beings. But they do not have anything to do with our ascension plan to God. So that's why they don't tell us about it. Now, will we meet beings like that? Yeah, we'll meet them on the way to paradise. But I'm sure that the absolute and the ultimate probably has much to do with those types of beings too, that are non-ascension plan functions. You know what I'm saying?
Could it be, again, as an hypothesis, the same way you
Yeah, I'm just...
do about it, is that the sevenfold for those beings, instead of having the supreme and having some of the master spirits and ancient of days, perhaps involved along the line, in their ladder, the ultimate and the absolute.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, possible. Definitely possible.
So the sevenfold could be our experiential ladders.
Yes, and these could be the experiential ladders of other types of beings or higher types of beings. You know, we still have the transcendental and the absonite beings that we don't know a lot about, but they have a pathway too, right? To something. So maybe that's part of their sevenfold or something too.
Well, because here it says the universal Father has established the evolutionary creature's sevenfold approach.
Yeah.
So that's really the
Evolutionary, right.
So for the transcendental of the Absoniters, they may have another pathways.
Yeah.
Their own sect that makes sense for them.
It would make sense. It would. It's very possible.
So Roger, the difference between God the ultimate and God the absolute.
Oh Lord, we had a whole slide on that. Let me go back to it. That's something I couldn't explain in just a couple of words. I'd have to review it here. Okay. This is why this is good.
Oh, right, okay.
Remember? God the ultimate, the eventuating God of super time transcending space, the second experiential level, right? The absolute is the experientializing God of the transcendental superpersonal values and meanings. So one is having to do with the transcendent space. Where would that be? That'd be Aroma, right? And the other one has to do with transcending meanings and values, but also what? Experientializing meanings and values.
Which is God the Supreme.
Which is God the Supreme. Right.
But it's like a cross between the Supreme
Right.
and the ultimate.
Yeah. Now while we're here, let's talk about this too. This is important too. The God, the ultimate, attains the absonite, super-personal time and space transcendental experiential values also. Absonite. Who's an Absonite? That's an element too, right? Now, who was probably part of the Absonite also? That would probably be the outer space levels, because they postulate that the Absonite beings and the transcendental beings will play a part in the 4 outer space levels. See, we don't know for sure what type of beings are going to be populating the 4 outer space levels yet, do we? You would assume it would be finite, wouldn't you? But that's not true, because when you involve the Absonite and the transcendental, you have added something different, right?
Well, again, I would think that the material out there would be different than in our
Yes.
7
Yeah.
super universes.
You would think it would be even more finite, wouldn't you? Because that's the,
Even more fun,
yeah,
you would think.
you would think, but it's just the opposite, really. Because if the Absonite and the transcendentals are involved, they would be the level we have to go through to get to paradise, is it not true? So if they have Absonite beings and transcendental beings in the 4 outer space levels, they would be spiritually above us at the starting point, right?
Well, if it's true that we are going to be involved in those outer space as well, so perhaps that's also a form of experiential, more physical evolution, and perhaps they are there first because, not because it's a high level, but perhaps because it's going to be a physical reality that is more
Different.
comprehensive, but starting possibly at the same level as we did.
It could,
I don't know. It's
could be,
just
or a morph of that level, right? Something totally different than what we experience, you know?
Well, it could be that all us evolutionary creatures, being we are going to attain the Father
Yeah.
in a distant future, we will be going out there and there'll be so many of us. Maybe it's more of our training. Maybe we are what's going to populate
Maybe so.
out there.
Yeah. Maybe
I
so.
don't know.
Anything's possible.
It's like a reboot.
It's like a reboot.
Like a reboot, yeah.
Infinity 2.0.
Yeah.
Right.
the Matrix
Eternity 2.0.
You know, if y'all think about that, if there's 4 outer space levels, there would be also an eternity 2.1, 2.2, 2.3.
See?
Exactly.
I knew it.
You know, this is never ending. That's the thing we just can't wrap our head around. It just doesn't stop, does it? You know, the possibilities are endless. You know, you take a bunch of finite beings that's gone all the way to paradise, finaliters, right? That's us. We go all the way to paradise, and then they give us a job in the outer space levels, right? So we get introduced to a whole new reality all over again. Now, this doesn't happen until we've experienced what? All 7 of the super universes, right? So we have experience of not only this super universe, but 6 others, right? And then we have the experience of what? 1 billion worlds of Havana. We go to every one of them. We don't skip over any of them, right? So, you know, if you spend a year on one planet, that's 1 billion years by itself, right?
I guess God's in no hurry.
He's in no hurry. That's right. That's
It was
right.
a big creation.
That's
Really
right.
big.
Maybe that's why there's no marriage in heaven, right? If I have to listen to you one more time talk about the ultimate, I'm just going to scream. You know? So anyway, and then we go to the paradise, right? Through paradise, you know, and all the wonders of paradise, you know, which we can't even, there's not even words to explain. And then they send us out to the outer space levels, right? So we go through all these neat, good, great, fantastic, wonderful
Yeah.
things.
And then on a camping trip.
Then we go on a camping trip to the outer space levels.
Well
Boy,
equipped.
did I have it good.
But we will be spiritual beings.
We'll be spiritual beings. Our concepts of reality will have changed so much that there's just not words for it, is there? You know, it's amazing to me they try to explain these things to us, you know, when they write this stuff, because so many times they say you don't have words in the human language for us to tell you.
Explain it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's the truth. You know, it's just nothing to relate it to. It'd be kind of like this. Think about this. If a caveman, they had a caveman was in ice and woke up, and they revived him and stuff, and you put a computer in front of him. Would he have any concept of what that computer was? No. Could he turn it on? He wouldn't know to turn it on, would he? He'd take his club and
That's what I was thinking.
That's right.
We're trying to eat it.
So they're trying to teach cavemen about computers. That's what they're doing here, right? We're the cavemen, this is the computer. And they're trying to get us to at least learn how to turn it on, right? That's what we're up against. Makes us feel pretty silly, doesn't it? Okay, let's keep going. Let's try to finish this slide before we quit tonight. Today, I should say. Back on
21 finish.
29. Did we finish that?
We did,
Yes.
Oh, that's right, we did. Okay, all right. Well, it's noon, isn't it? I think we should quit the ones and quit tonight. Yeah, 7 absolutes. We'll start on that next time. Okay, well, let's have a little prayer and we'll cut it off for tonight. Father, thank you for this time together, and pray that you'll bless this group and keep our minds open and help us to continue learning. Let us share this information we learn with other people so that they might grow also, and that we might benefit from the time we spend here. Pray that you'll watch over our family this week and our loved ones, and keep us healthy and provide us with our needs each day. And Lord, we just want to praise you and thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and learn about you and learn about your sons, learn about the Son of God and the Infinite Spirit. And we pray that this will become an integral part of our lives and our teachings. We say this in the name of your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. And you know how to stop that one too?
How's Bill?